Hi, good morning, everybody. Good to see all of you again. I know I met some of you last week. Okay, last week when I met with you, we discussed the TP module, your TP100 module, and I just got you familiar with the expectations of the module with regards to teaching practice at schools and basically to orientate you on the module itself. Now, today, what I'm going to focus on is the portfolio of evidence booklets that you all should have received. So have you all got your booklets? You haven't. Okay. Okay, I know that all of your material, your study material, is being issued by Wise Books. And of course, you should be receiving your portfolio of evidence with that. However, if you go onto the TP page on your ECI, you'll find that I've got all your study material already uploaded. So you'll find your welcome letters, all your TP letters, your study guide, your portfolio of evidence, your mentor teacher's guide. So everything that you need with regards to the TP100 module is there for you. But today I want to go over the portfolio of evidence because I find a lot of queries that come from students, apart from the TP days itself at schools. I find a lot of queries regarding the activities that needs to be done. And these are a repetition of the same queries all the time. So what I've actually done is if you go onto the ECI page, under additional resources, you'll also find that I put notes up for you that will assist you on how to do the various activities in your portfolio of evidence. So if I could please ask you to read the notes that I give to you first before you actually query it, because it's a query relating to something that I've already answered. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this time and I'm going to explain to you from the mark sheet the activities that you're going to do with regards to your lesson plans, and of course the 10 writing activities that we're going to do. So the first thing I need to introduce you to is the mark sheet. Now, when your portfolio of evidence files are issued to us for marking, so when you finish your teaching practice, this portfolio of evidence that you put together is put into a LibreArch file and you courier it to us for the assessors to then mark it. Now, the activities that you need to put into this file are already reflected in the mark sheet. So if you can go through the mark sheet itself, we, the assessors, will then look for the following. We will check if you've done your online test. Now, there's 2 online tests, which is part of your DP. It doesn't contribute any percentage towards your final mark, but you need to ensure that it's completed. So what you need to do, there's an online test 1 and online test 2. We recommend to students that you need to complete these tests before you submit your POE. So if you can complete online test 1 immediately after you complete study session 1. Now, if you look in your study letter or study guide, as I mentioned last week, we have 2 sessions that the TP is broken into. If you can complete online test immediately after session 1 and online test 2 immediately after you complete your TP, then you complete it with your DP marks. That's the requirements. The section A refers to the assessments that you would present to your mentor teacher. So I'm going to explain that to you just now. There are 3 formal assessments that your mentor teacher will assess you on, and those are the marks that we will put onto the sheet. Can I please urge you students, do not write on these mark sheets, right? A lot of students, what they do is they probably want to make it easier for us, the assessors, and they go and they add the marks there, and they write a whole lot of information before the mark sheet is actually submitted to us for marking. So if you can please refrain from writing on these mark sheets. Right, so immediately after your formal lesson marks are added in, there are 10 writing activities on your portfolio of evidence. I'm going to discuss that just now. And that starts with the journal and it ends on your final reflection at your school. We will add those marks there after we have marked each activity. In section C, what we then do is we take 2 of the formal lessons that you presented with your mentor teacher. We then mark those lesson plans, and those marks, if you look at the mark sheet, it's out of 50 marks each. So those are the marks that we then add there. The final thing that we put onto your mark sheet that contributes to your overall mark, which is the final assessment, which is done by your mentor school. So your mentor teacher, together with maybe the HOD or even the principal or the DP of the school, will discuss your performance in the 6 weeks that you've been at the school. They then have a mark sheet, which is called the PRAC 104, which they then allocate a mark to you. And all of this now put together now makes up your final mark. So once we have added all these marks onto your sheet, we then come up with your overall teaching practice mark. All right, so now what I'm going to do is talk to you about the 3 formal lessons. These 3 formal lessons, you need to understand that in the time that you're at school, if you read your study material carefully, it mentions to you that you have to teach at least 5 lessons per week. Now, 5 lessons does not mean that you've got to prepare lesson plans for every single lesson that you teach. Remember, a lot of these lessons are very informal. Your teacher might come up to you and say, listen, I'm actually busy with this admin right now. Will you be able to read the story to the class, for example? Can you do the morning ring for the class right now while I'm busy with something else? So those are some of the informal activities that you'll be performing at school. However, when your submission is made to us for marking, these 3 formal lessons that I'm referring to now are the ones that your mentor teacher will then use the mark sheet and give you an assessment on. So how you present that lesson will be determined by those mark sheets that, the mentor teacher would be using. So the first assessment, which is the language storytelling lesson, with regards to that assessment, what you need to do is you need to choose an age-appropriate book. Now, some of you are in the higher certificate program, so you are the little children. Some of you are with the degree or the diploma program, so you are with the grade R children. So make sure that the book that you select is actually appropriate for that age group, right? Liaise with your mentor teacher. Do not just go and choose a story and then suddenly your mentor teacher says to you, sorry, this is not appropriate, or this is totally irrelevant, or we're following a particular theme right now, and I expect your story to be in line with the theme that's being taught. So look at factors such as that. Always discuss with your mentor teacher first, right? Too often we get complaints from our students thereafter, where they say, I presented my lesson, but my mentor was not happy with it because it was totally irrelevant. So rather avoid problems and ask first, get clarity from your mentor first before you actually do a planning and presentation. So with the storytelling, you're going to find yourself a suitable book. You're going to use a puppet. You're going to have an introductory poem and a song. If you look at the lesson plan, it mentions all of that, right? I'm basically touching on what's mentioned in your portfolio of evidence. You have to start it off with a nice poem, a suitable song, and then once you introduce it, obviously you read the story to the class while your mentor teacher is observing. And of course, your mentor teacher should have the lesson plan in front of them, and your mentor teacher will also have the mark sheets that you will give to them. Now, in the mentor teacher guide, you'll find that there are mark sheets there as well. Please don't get the teacher to use those mark sheets. Those are watermarked copies, which is for their reference. You will take the copy from your portfolio of evidence, and that's the one that your mentor will be using. Right, the second assessment that you will be doing is the life skills assessment. This assessment creates a lot of queries because I think the fact that we've got it in 4 parts, it does create a confusion. So basically, the same concept as your storytelling lesson, you need to speak to your mentor teacher to plan this lesson. Now, the life skills lesson will refer to an art activity that you're going to teach your class. Once you decide on, the first part is deciding on the actual lesson, planning that lesson so that you can present it to your class. The second part of this is that there is a roster provided. Now, for all of you that have registered as part of Jan 2020, you'll find that on the actual roster, we've got the activity, we've got the resources, and we've got the outcomes that you need to list, right? We are asking you to design the roster. Nowhere in the document does it say that you need to go and teach every single activity on the roster. We do understand that time is a huge factor. The schools have their own programs that they follow as well. If your mentor teacher allows you to teach those activities over that week, by all means, go ahead and do it. However, we do have concerns from students where the mentor comes back and says to them, I cannot allow you to teach every single lesson because I am busy teaching the content that I've already planned. So in cases like that, you are not forced to teach every single every single activity on the roster. So what you then need to do is to make sure that your roster is completed from Monday to Friday. All the main activities listed at the bottom, all the resources that you would have been using to teach the lesson is listed, and of course the outcomes for each activity is listed. The formal lesson that you're doing for life skills, please ensure that under the main activity, that is also listed. For example, if you are presenting your life skills lesson on the Tuesday afternoon or whatever time on Tuesday, then under the main activity, you will say formal life skills lesson presented, so that we know that you presented that lesson on that particular day. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay. Then the other aspect is the lesson will have to be presented as arranged with your mentor teacher. So obviously here as well, you need to liaise, you need to ensure that your mentor is in agreement with a particular date and time, and you present that lesson. The last part, which really creates confusion as well, is the labels. Now the labels that we are asking you to do is, when you are doing your art activity, what you need to do is to write out labels using the ball and stick or the Natalia font, and you have to place these labels next to the resources that you're using for the lesson. So of course, you'll probably have a table or a desk that's set out with the paint or the brushes or whatever resources that you have prepared for the lesson. Next to that, you will write down, if it's red paint, you will write down red paint. Please do not type these out, because if you look at your study guide, handwriting is discussed, and we would like for you to use the handwriting that we've discussed in the study guide for you to practice. Remember, as teachers of little children, you also need to be able to write in Natalia and ball and stick. So this is good practice for you as well. So make sure that when you are writing out those labels, it's not printed. Don't use a computer. Write it out. You can take a photo of that display that you have with the labels, and you stick it into the space provided. However, if you feel that you want to write it out on that actual page on the POE, feel free to do that. So we will accept either one, right? But please, I'm encouraging you, use the ball and stick and use the Natalia font. The third is formal assessment that you would use is your maths assessment. Now the maths assessment, in the same concept, you've got to write out a lesson plan. You've got to arrange with your mentor teacher on the place and the time that you are going to do the presentation. The reason I mentioned place is that it's an outdoor activity. So you are then going to decide on a fun game, a maths game, that you're going to now teach your lessons outside. Right, a popular game that lots of students use is hopscotch. Right, they're teaching the children about counting, but they're doing a fun activity and it's outside. So that's what you need to do. A lot of students misunderstand the maths outdoor game, and they prepare a lesson that they're actually teaching using the chalkboard or the smartboard inside the classroom, right? They totally misunderstand this as well. So that's basically what this three formal assessments entails. Please make sure that for all three of these formal assessments, you've got your lesson plans written out. The declaration is signed by you. It's dated. It's signed by your mentor teacher. There is a space as well for the principal to sign. And make sure that all the mark sheets are completed in full by your mentor teacher for whoever is the person responsible. Now, in some cases, what happens is the mentor does not do the actual formal assessments. You may find that the head of department comes in to your classroom, and that is also allowed, right? A lot of students actually take offense to the fact that the HOD comes in, but they are allowed to also assess you on your formal lessons. Right, so now that we've covered the three formal lessons that you are going to present, I'm now going to go over the 10 writing activities. Now, before I start actually explaining the first activity, are there any students in this venue that registered for the July 2019 intake? Okay, there are a few activities that we've changed slightly, right? But the ones that I'm mentioning now is for the 2020, Jan 2020 intake. So what all students will have to have a journal. So for writing activity 1, in your period of the 6 weeks of teaching practice, you will keep a journal with you. You'll be recording your daily activities, things that you've observed, things that you've learned from lessons, what you've observed from your mentor teacher, both the strengths, the weaknesses. What have you mentioned with regards to the classroom, the indoor layout? Describe it. Tell us about the strengths and weaknesses about it. Well, actually, for the Jan 2020 intake, you are recording it for yourself. The observations are for you. Because in your case, we are not collecting your journals. However, those that registered in July last year, you will submit your journals to us because we'll be marking your journal. So the activity has been changed slightly with regards to the new intake of students. After you've recorded your journal for your 6-week period, you'll find that there's 4 reflective activities that you need to complete. Now, with regards to those reflections, the first one is very, very easy, right? Put yourselves into the shoes of little children that go to class for the first time. They want to run away, right? Little children will cry. Now, I often have students that come back to me at the end of the year and say to me, Mrs. Moodley, you know, when I walked into their class at the beginning of the year, I felt like the children myself. I wanted to run out. I wanted to cry. So this is what we want to, I'm not telling you to say you want to cry, but I want you to reflect on your first day. Tell us how you felt. Tell us what you learned about the first day. How was your experience? Like a lot of you will be going to a classroom for the very, very first time. So tell us what your experience was like. Reflect on that day, right? You could perhaps write a page and a half. The second activity that you need to reflect on is your mentor teacher's classroom management skills, right? I need you students, I must urge you, when you're reflecting on your mentor teacher, please don't be too critical because sometimes they ask to read what you've written and they take offense to anything negative that you have written. So be mindful about what you're writing in your reflection. Look at your mentor's strengths and weaknesses. Look at what your mentor is teaching you. What have you learned from this mentor? What can you take into your future teaching career, right? The guidelines are given there to you, but I'm just highlighting it. Right, and then the last activity that you need to focus on, the third activity is on the formal lessons, right? So you've got 3 formal lessons. In the same manner that you've now reflected on your mentor teacher's classroom management, you are now reflecting on yourself, right? So you choose one of the 3 formal lessons and you tell us what the lesson was about, how the lesson went, how receptive were your learners, how did you manage to teach the lesson? Now, last week, if you were here, you'll remember that I had this diagram up that says that you learn through your lectures, you learn through your study material, there's a period of time at schools, and of course, there's a period of reflection as well. So as you can see in these activities, there's a lot of reflection that's taking place in your TP period. And the last thing that you actually need to do is to choose 2 of your informal lessons. And my advice to you is to choose one from the beginning of your TP and choose the other one from the end of your TP. So you yourself will see your growth as an individual or as a teacher from the beginning, how you presented the lesson, how exactly did that lesson go. Perhaps it wasn't a success. Perhaps it didn't go as well as you planned, right? And then you reflect on one towards the end of your TP. By then you should all be pros at it, right? And then tell us, how did that lesson go? How successful was it? So basically, those are the 4 activities that we will now be marking as part of the Jan 2020 intake of students. However, for those students that registered in July, your guidelines are similar on the page. All you do is reflect on the actual guidelines that's provided, submit that journal, and we will mark it. Right, so that's just the difference between the 2. Okay, now writing activity 2 is broken down into 2 parts. The first one, writing activity 2A, is the elders that's taken from your NCF document. So what you need to do is identify the 6 elders and then provide 1 outcome per elder, anything in general. In writing activity 2B, you'll find that the elders are provided there for you, but you need to then provide an outcome for the elder that's completed at your school. So for example, if you are discussing exploring mathematics, right? So you look at what's happening in the school that you're doing your TP at. Whatever activity with regards to exploring mathematics, there's an activity that the school does, you will write an outcome for that activity. Okay, sorry about that. So we go back to where I started. So you will then find an activity that you're going to discuss for each elder. You're going to write an outcome for each activity for the elder at your school. And then please do not repeat all of the outcomes that you've used for writing activity 2A, right? So here you've got to write something completely different. We look out for that. And then you also, in that activity, have to provide an example of an activity for each of those elders. Okay. Then there's another part that's for the Jan 2020 intake of students, where you've got to then identify a particular elder that's not being met at the school, right? And then you comment on how that can be improved at the school. With regards to those students that registered in July 2019, you will find that you need to, in your journal, reflect on 3 elders that's being implemented at your school. So please make sure that there's a slight difference with the 2 activities, and make sure that for the year group that you registered for, that you completed the correct format. Writing activity 2 requests you to make a collage. Writing activity 3, here you are required to make a collage, and this now refers to the CAPS document. So in the foundation phase, we have 3 subjects that are covered, which is your mathematics, your English home language, and the life skills. We've provided you with 45 blocks. The guidelines there says to you that you need to color the blocks in 3 different colors representing the 3 different subjects, right? You then have to get an A3 or larger page, poster paper, or whatever you're going to use. Remember, you are submitting this for marking, so it must be something that you can file. You're then going to stick those you're going to stick those outcomes, those subjects first, content areas, and the various activities per subject in the collage that you are making. We ask that you be very creative when you're making this collage. You can draw lines, you can put pictures, you can be as creative as possible. We don't really mind, right? And then, of course, you'll find that some of those activities in each block can actually be integrated across the 3 subjects. So then we ask you to then go further, and you can draw lines to show the integration amongst the 3 subjects, right? So that's writing activity 3. Writing activity 4, we provided you with a nursery rhyme, right? So it's a popular nursery rhyme on the beehive. And the first example on life skills has been provided for you. What you then need to do is go and identify 2 other FP subjects, and you're going to write a possible outcome based on the rhyme that's given to you, right? So that one's also very, very simple. In writing activity 5, you've got to do a mind map. So there you can go and Google and find examples of mind maps. Be not fussy about how you do the actual mind map, but please ensure that you show the integration across the subjects. In this case, you can choose NCF or CAPS, choose the topic or theme that is covered, and show the integration across the subjects for that. Right? So that's also a very simple activity. And what some students do is they just write, they have all these lines drawn, and they write maths, life skills, and English. They have a particular theme like transport, but there are no proper examples to say what activities are being done, right? With transport as an example, for a particular theme, you can do activities in all 3 of the FP subjects, for example. Writing activity 6 refers to a daily program. And if you read the guidelines that's provided at the top of the page, we do say to you that you need to prepare or design a daily program for the grade that you are registered for. So look at the program that you are registered for. If you are a higher certificate student, obviously the program that you have will be different compared to the ones that the grade arts learners will follow. So make sure, because we do look for that as well, make sure that the daily program is age appropriate and is suitable for the level of the learners that you are registered for. Writing activity 7 refers to professionalism. With professionalism, you'll find that in your study guide, we've given you 9 guidelines. We've already provided you with 9 with regards to professionalism. The 10th guideline is something that you will have to come up with. So you'll find that that block is completely blank. What you will then do is write a suggested strength and weakness for each of those guidelines. Please don't go and put general strengths and weaknesses. Right? We all have strengths and weaknesses. So write it down, but refer to yourself. It's referring to you. Understood? Okay. Writing activity 8, we provided you with 5 types of misbehavior. There's some pictures there and the particular misbehavior is listed. You are then supposed to give a possible cause and a possible solution for that misbehavior. Here to students, I must urge you, think around positive, right? We don't want to have to discipline our children in a negative manner. No corporal punishment must be written there. We do have cases where students talk about hitting children and things like that. So please be mindful of what you write with regards to a possible solution to each of that misbehavior. Right? Positive discipline is very good. Writing activity 9 is classroom rules. Now, the guideline there tells you that you need to prepare a poster. Now, you all know when you go into a foundation-based classroom, there are no A4 posters there. The charts are big, A3 and larger. They're colorful. They're age-appropriate because little children love color. They love pictures. So if you are preparing a classroom rules poster, please make sure that the rules that you are selecting are appropriate for that age group as well. So if you are the higher certificate group, then of course you'll have very simple rules and you'll also have the pictures for each rule. Obviously, those children are not at the age where they can actually read as yet. So very simple rules with a picture. The same could apply to the grade R learners. A lot of them still can't read. So those rules as well, try and keep it as simple as possible, as few as possible, but have the pictures alongside it. And that poster is also then submitted to us when you're submitting it for marking. The last writing activity that you need to complete is your final reflection. So once you've completed your teaching practice, that is why you're keeping this journal now. Because this journal will now help you at the end of your TP to then go back and look at all your experiences in that 6-week period. You then do a summative reflection on everything that you've learned at the school in the time that you've been there. All the positives, all the negatives, all that you've learned. Summarize the strengths and weaknesses of your mentor teacher. Summarize your experience with the learners, even what you have learned. How have you grown as an individual? As a teacher in training, how have you developed in that 6 weeks that you've been there? And you'll find that there's a huge difference from the time you actually started to the time that you have finished your TP. Right? Please use paragraphs. Make sure that you have a proper introduction, the body to it, a proper conclusion. This is a professional environment that you are going into, so start writing on a professional manner as well. So make sure that that essay is not like, what some students do is they write everything in one page and there's no paragraphs, no full stops, no commas. So please go back and read and reread and make sure that you've edited before you actually submit that to us for marking. Right, so those are the 10 writing activities that you're going to be completing. Now, remember, I mentioned to you that in the time that you're doing your TP, you have to do at least teach 5 informal lessons per week. At the end of your TP period, you are going to submit 10 informal lesson plans to us. So on page 50, you'll see that we've got generic copies, blank copies for you that you are then going to write out your lesson plans and submit to us. So you can decide what you want to include. You can decide if you want to have a lot of the language ones or a lot of math. It's really, really up to you. But when those lesson plans are given to us for marking, what we would like to see is a reflection of math, English, and life skills basically. So try and include all 3 subjects so that there's a fair reflection of what you've taught in your 6 weeks. With regards to these lesson plans, please make sure that they're stamped, right? They are dated and they're signed by your mentor teacher. You do not get marks for these lessons. Like I said, they are informal. There are no mark sheets for these, but your mentor teacher will probably give you suggestions. They will give you guidelines. They will give you feedback on how you can improve on your lesson plans presentation. So that's also very valuable. And if they want to write a comment, by all means, they can do so on a suitable spot in that lesson plan, right? So it's up to your mentor teacher. But it's always advisable that your mentor teacher reads the lessons with you, they guide you, and of course, they watch you presenting the actual lesson to the learners, right? Because that's how you develop and grow as well. Apologies. So those are the activities that you are going to complete for your TP100 module with regards to your portfolio of evidence. Now, when we're calculating your marks, like I mentioned to you, you've got to complete 2 online tests. They have to be done before you submit your portfolio of evidence. It is your DP for the module. It does not contribute in any way to your final mark, but it has to be done, right? So once that's done, the other part of it is your portfolio of evidence booklet, which I've just discussed. That will contribute 60% towards your final mark for teaching practice. You then have to have the Prac 104 filled in at your school. Now, like I mentioned, this is a confidential document. Once it's filled in, your mentor teacher or the school will email it to DL Teaching Prac, and we will have a record of those marks. So that then contributes the other 40%. However, students, I have to stress this. You could get 100% for your POE. You can get 100% from your Prac 104 final assessment from your school, but it is a requirement that you complete at least 90% attendance at school, right? Students are required to be 6 weeks, that is 30 consecutive school days at a school. If you don't fulfill the 90% requirement, irrespective of whatever you get for your POE or your Prac 104, your marks cannot be released because you will fail the module based on not fulfilling your TP days. If you are absent, if you are sick, unwell, and you've stayed away from school for 2 or 3 days, that's absolutely fine as long as you have a medical certificate to cover you for those 6 days. Anything over than that, you obviously have to make up those days, but you need to liaise with us first so that you inform us that this is what's happening and these are the days that you need to make up, right? And when you finish your teaching practice, please, I'm urging you, as soon as your TP is over, once that register is signed, stamped, and dated, email it to DL Teaching Prac. We will verify that you've completed your 30 days compulsory attendance, and you then attach the original into your POE booklet when you are sending it to us for marking. This also helps you as a student because we will then pick up if there's like a day or 2 that's still outstanding, and of course, supporting you to make up those days so that you actually don't end up failing that module. Right, so that's with regards to the calculation of the marks. Submitting your POE. Now, I know there's a lot of students that are around the Durban campus, and you can make arrangements to drop off your POE yourself or get someone to drop it for you. That is absolutely fine. However, the address that we provided is for those students that cannot make it to come into us, right? So we have students that's all over South Africa that need to then courier the file and send it directly through to the teaching practice department. The address, the courier details have been supplied on the ECI page. It's on the welcome letter as well. So please, when you are submitting your portfolio of evidence, please ensure that you allow for delays with delivery. With the courier company, there's a possibility that it could take a day or 2, but the other possibility is it could take a week or 2. So you need to actually plan well in advance. That is why we give you a cutoff date for when your TP has to be completed. So it gives you ample time to then make sure that you've completed all your activities and your file is 100% before you actually submit it and to meet the deadlines. For those of you that have submitted now or have registered now, the submission date for your portfolio of evidence is the 1st of October 2020. So you need to ensure that your file reaches us at Teaching Practice Department on or before the 1st of October. Those students that have registered in July last year, your file is actually due on the 15th of May, right? So many of our July students are actually at their TP right now. They're finalizing their files. And you know what? Don't wait until submission date. If you are happy, if you're 100% sure that you've completed all the requirements, by all means, send your files through to us, right? Nothing stops you from sending it earlier. Okay, so that's with regards to the TP portfolio of evidence. I trust that this information has cleared a lot of doubts. I'm sure a lot of you that are currently doing your TP, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I do apologize that a lot of you have been trying to get some answers from me, and there have been some delays, but a lot of students have now resorted to contacting me via the ECI page and emails. I have been responding to those, so if you need an urgent response and you're at TP at the moment, you can actually consult with me and I will assist you to the best of my ability. We also have another lecturer that's come on board to help me with the first year teaching practice. Mrs. Sally Brown is also more than willing to assist students. So send your queries through and we will assist you the best we can. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Is it 5 lessons per week for our 6-week thing, or is it only 3? So is it 5 lessons over the 6 week or 3 lessons over the 6 weeks?
Yeah, I got the first.
There's also a question from Waterfall.
Okay, one moment, Waterfall. You said something about the 5 lessons per week. Yes, those are 5 informal lessons. Like I mentioned to you, your mentor teacher will ask you to perhaps read a story to the children, do the morning ring with the learners, whatever activities that they give you. Those are informal activities, right? So those are not the formal lessons that I mentioned to you. You don't get any marks for that, but it's part of your TP experience that you're having at your school. Does that answer your question? 3 informal lessons that your mentor teacher will assess you on. You will have mark sheets that they will fill in, and 10 informal lessons that you will teach the class, you will write out lesson plans, and you'll submit to us for marking. No problem. Sorry, Waterfall, can we have your question?
You know, we have 6 weeks of teaching track at school. I was wondering, does it have to be within the whole 6 weeks, or can we spread out the time that we have teaching track?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question. It wasn't loud enough.
Like
Can someone just repeat it for me?
Okay, the 6 weeks that we have to spend at teaching prep, did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so do we have to be consistent with that 6 week, or can we spread it out? Like we can do 1 week at school and then do something else the next week and then go back to school the following week?
No, you can't spread out your teaching practice, right? If you look at your fact sheets, you are all mentioned that it's mentioned in your fact sheet that you have to complete 6 weeks of your teaching prac at a school. You cannot decide to then do 1 day at a school or 1 week at a school, go back to work, for example, and then come back to the school. You have to arrange with your employer, or you've got to take time off, or in some cases, some students, what they do is they take unpaid leave and they use some of their annual leave and they go into the school. You see, students, what you need to understand is that this practical experience is very important, and there's a lot of students that have enrolled or registered that have no prior teaching experience. You need to be able, like I mentioned last week, you cannot have a surgeon operating on you without them having that prior practical experience. And the same applies to you as well. You need to get as much practical experience in a grade R class or a double knot or triple knot class in order for you to actually do your lessons as well. There's a period of observation that you do. There's a period of testing that takes place at the school with regards to your formal assessments. You need to understand how little children behave. You need to interact with them. You need to know what goes on at the schools. So by breaking up, that continuity does not assist you in any way.
Morning. I wanted to know what date do we start the teaching practical in the school? And if possible, can we start it a bit earlier according to the dates?
Okay, what we do advise students is, okay, those of you that registered in July last year, so this is your period of teaching practice now. We advise students, and our guidelines to students is that you need to understand the theory before you do the practicals. So last week when I addressed all of you, I mentioned that there's 2 parts to the TP module, which is the institutional teaching practice, which revolves around the theory, and it's the TPR, which actually revolves around the practical components of the module. Our advice to students is that you need to learn the theory before you actually go and do the practical. And your academic modules that you cover in semester 1 assist you greatly when you're doing your TP in semester 2. So those of you that have just registered in Jan, your TP will take place in the 3rd school term. So that is in your 2nd semester, immediately after the June-July school holidays. We advise our students to then go and complete their 6 weeks at this school. However, there are some exceptional cases, and students liaise with us one-on-one, and we find ways to actually support and guide them on how their TP should be done so that they can fulfill those 6 weeks before the actual due date of the POE. Yes, you can send in all your academic queries need to be sent to DL support at Embury. What happens is then there's a ticket that's generated. That query then comes to the lecturers who then responds to the queries and provides a response that is then sent back to the student from DL support. Right, so that's the process that you follow. However, you'll find that there are some queries with regards to your teaching practice dates, for example. You can also send those queries to DL teaching practice, right? So we can respond on that email as well.
Hi, I just wanted to know, when do we get our teaching practice study guides? I'm in my 2nd semester, I didn't receive a teaching practice study guide. And when I'm trying to log on, I did email the lecturer, and I think it was Sally who sent me a link. When I'm trying to download from the link, it tells me you cannot enroll yourself for this course.
Maybe that's an IT related issue, because all the study material, like I mentioned to you, is on the ECI page. So even the study guide that you're referring to, if you click on the TPR study guide, you should be able to download a copy from there. But when you did not receive it from Wise Books, perhaps you should have contacted us so that we could have followed up to find out what's happening. Have you received the other TP study material?
No, no TP study material at all.
Okay, would you mind sending me an email and then we could follow up on that? But in the meantime, I would suggest looking at the copies that's on the ECI page. You can't access it at all. It could be an IT related issue. We'll have to follow up on that. Are there any other questions from the other centers? Any questions?
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, we are kind Motono. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Montana. Durban campus, any more questions? Okay, we've got one at the back.
Hi, can we do the 4-year teaching practice at the same school? Or do we have to go to different schools?
Are you employed at the school?
No.
Okay. You'll have to actually choose 4 different schools. We'd like for you to have as much experience as possible, to be exposed to many different schools as possible. Remember, if you go to the same school for the 4 years, you actually just basically repeating the same or learning the same leadership styles, teaching styles. You're already familiar with the staff and the learners. It's good for you to go to different schools to find out what happens at the various schools. So I advise you to, in your 4 years of your degree, find 4 different schools that you can maximize this experience from, learn as much as you can as a student, because once you're placed at a school, once you've finally finished your degree and you secure employment at the schools, you're actually basically in that school for many, many years. So try and maximize on your teaching practice experience and learn as much as you can from 4 different schools. Sorry, Simon, one more question.
Sorry, we have another question from Montana.
Montana, one moment, please.
Hi, I wanted to find out, do you place us in schools, or do we have to find our own schools for each of the years for the teaching practice? And do you have like suggestions, or do we just find our own schools that's closest to us?
Okay, ultimately what you need to understand is that we do place you at schools. However, the process of placement is as follows. When you receive your TP letters, you'll find that you've got a willingness to host letter. The willingness to host letter needs to be then taken to a school. Students, please understand that we have students across the country. And although we do have a database of schools, we don't have the name of every single school that is close to you. So our advice to students is that you take the willingness to host form to a school that you prefer to do your TP at. Of course, you need to be mindful of the fact that that school needs to be CAPS compliant. They're able to provide you with the learning opportunity that you require as a student teacher. So once you approach the school, and you obviously you look at distance, you look at safety, all of those aspects are very, very important. You take the willingness to host form to the school. The school, once they agree to host you, fills in that form. They stipulate the 6-week teaching block. Obviously, the mentor teacher's names, the school details are all filled onto the form. This form is then emailed to DL Teaching Prac, which has to be in by the end of April this year. We verify all those details. We then place you into the respective schools. However, if you do not have any particular school in mind, if you still need assistance with finding a school, you need to email us and we will assist you to find a suitable school, right? But you really need to communicate that with us. Montana, you had a question?
Hi, yes, I'm Alison. With regards to the question of the 4 different schools that we need to go to, I'm interning at a school at the moment. So do I still need to find 4 separate schools, or can I do all of it at the one school?
Hi, Alison. With regards to those that are employed at schools, if you could kindly email those details and correspond with us, because these are exceptional cases that we deal with differently. So in cases like that, can you please then notify us and then we'll guide you? There's a possibility that if you are employed at a school and if they do provide the grades that's required, like in your first year of your TP degree, you're only allowed to be in the grade R class. But however, when you start your 2nd to your 4th year, you then go into a grade 1 to 3 class. You don't come back to a grade R. So these are the factors that needs to be determined and of course verified before we can actually advise you. So Alison, if you could please send an email to DL Teaching Pack and we'll advise you accordingly. We've just got time for one more question.
Our last question before we cross to our next lecturer from the Waterfall campus.
Okay, morning. My question is similar to the previous one. If you're employed at a school, can you do your 4 years there? Meaning you can do grade R and then go to another grade in another grade in grade 3. Can you do that?
Okay, like I said to Alison, these are individual cases that we deal with separately. If you could please email that to us at DL Teaching Practice and we'll find a way to assist you. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.